From the bar to the bench, from argument to judgment. In a world where every word matters and every decision echoes, this is Rocket City Bar and Bench. Yeah. Step into the chamber where the truth gets tested, where the facts stand tall and the lies get questioned. Black robes, oak desks, pressure in the air. Every move calculated, every silence a stare. From filings to rulings, from motions to pleas. We decode the system, bring the law to its knees. Not for the chaos, but clarity and light. Where wrong meets consequence and wrong meets right. Precedent matters, every case leaves a trace. Every argument built, every claim we embrace. From the streets to the courts, every voice has a role. We don't just read the law, we expose it, so we break it down. Line by line, no blurred truth, no hidden signs. From the bar where the cases begin, to the bench where the ruling set in. No noise, no spin, just evidence. Welcome to Rocket City Bar and Bench. Cross-examine the facts, put the truth on trial. Every statement dissected, every file compiled. We don't rush judgment, we take our time. Every statute explored, every angle defined. From civil disputes to criminal weight, where freedom is measured and shaped by fate. From contracts signed to rights denied, we bring it forward. Nothing to hide. No loopholes here, no games to play, just real world law in the real world way. We translate the language, make it understood. From legal confusion to something good. So whether you're learning or taking a stand, we put the system back in your hands. Knowledge is power, truth is defense. That's the mission of Bar and Bench. Every ruling has a ripple. Every voice has a place, and every case tells a story that shapes the future we face. We break it down, line by line, no blurred truth, no hidden signs. From the bar where the fight begins, to the bench where the law defends. Stand informed, stay evident strong. Know your rights, know right from wrong. Rocket City where truth makes sense. This is Rocket City Bar and Bench. The record stands. The record stands.
And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Rocket City Bar and Bench. I am here today with Mr. Will Walsh. Decided to have a nice Sunday afternoon talk. Will's an exceptional, I call him young man. I got about 20 years on him, but he is a Army veteran as I am. We were talking about a variety of topics, and Will's very accomplished. I'll let him get into his background, but he provided a nice list of things for us to talk about today. Military service, he's a race car driver, building Walsh Racecraft. We have the advertisement that he has that you can see up on the screen. He's also an MMA fighter, and just talk about, lessons learned throughout his life. Things that have made him successful. So with that, I will hand it over to Will. Will, give us a little bit about your background, talk about, where you grew up and, kind of how we came to this point today.
Sure thing. Well, totally appreciate you having me on your podcast, man. It means a lot. And
yeah, thank you.
I have to say that intro was absolutely fire. That was awesome. That was
good. I'm glad you like it.
And man, I guess I'm just kind of a southern boy that just tried to make it out, and I was born and raised in Huntsville, and my parents kind of always been on me about never quitting and stuff like that. And, you know, we went to East Limestone High School and I graduated there. I wasn't necessarily sure what I wanted to do. You know, I knew I was pretty hot and heavy in MMA at that time. Shout out my training partner, Noah Dameron. But
and Noah is actually my fiance's son, so that's kind of how Will and I were introduced to each other.
Absolutely, he is a great guy, a wonderful friend to have, and he's always been there, man. So y'all should check him out. But yeah, just we were kind of hot and heavy on it, and you know, we were two youngins trying to figure stuff out, and we knew we just wanted to train. That was it, you know. And so at some point after high school, I kind of tried to plan things out. My parents were slightly against me going into the military. I say my parents, my mom and my stepfather. I consider him, you know, my father too, and my dad. They were kind of on the fence about it, you know, and so.
Why so?
You know, I guess some people think the military, you know, you're automatically you're going out there to be, you know, straight up in battle, just straight up fighting insurgents or whatever the case will be. You know, some people think you're just going and, you know, shooting back at each other. And a lot of times I feel like that's the way they portray it is not necessarily the correct way. And so maybe it has a bad representation, but I think it leads young men in a right direction. It absolutely changed my life and my perspective on things. Um, I'm not sure what you think about that.
Well, I mean, I know that similar to you. I mean, before I became an officer in the Army, I started off as an E1 private, you know, enlisted. And my parents similarly were against me enlisting. They wanted me to go to college first because my family is comprised mostly of officers. In fact, my grandfather is a Rear Admiral, or was. He was Rear Admiral Carl Cyberlick, who I'm named after. He picked up Apollo 11 and 12, the lunar recoveries. So he was the commander of the USS Hornet. And, you know, they had aspirations for me to become an officer, and I didn't listen. And I thought, you know, at 17 years old, I knew everything, and I was going to enlist come hell or high water. So, you know, I enlisted as a military policeman, and, you know, went off the basic training and did all that. And, you know, I totally understand what you're saying that, you know, joining the military, I can't speak for the other forces, but I know the way that the Army is structured. You know, when we were used to have to run the stairs as part of our, you know, physical training, and the acronym of leadership, right? Loyalty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And running those steps and seeing that, you know, drilled those values, at least the words, into my mind. But I think that as you progress in your military career, you begin to understand what embodying those values actually are. And it really, you know, I think enlisting in the military is, at least it was for me, I think it made me a better officer coming, you know, into a direct commission, because I understood, you know, what the Army was at the absolute lowest level. I mean, for those that may be watching, it doesn't understand, you know, a private in the Army, you're the lowest on the totem pole, and it screws your head on straight, because all of the stuff, you know, that you may have thought you were a tough guy or whatever the case may be, you realize that there's always somebody bigger and tougher than you, and it screws your head on straight, so that you just fundamentally approach things differently from that vantage point. And I'm glad that I had that exposure, because had I not realized how difficult being lower enlisted was, it wouldn't have set me on the trajectory to finish my undergraduate degree, to do my MBA, to finish my law degree, and pursue higher levels of responsibility, from representing people in criminal cases, which I think is one of the biggest responsibilities you can have, to my position within the federal government that I have now, overseeing $240 billion worth of foreign military sales funds. So, but I attribute all of that to those days of running the stairs at the MP barracks, and I don't know if you kind of had a similar experience.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily remember running stairs. I'm sure there was some kind of crazy thing that they drummed up in their head. I do remember being in a rubber pit, and they would just kind of make us do all kinds of just crazy nonsense exercises. I mean, but in my opinion, stuff like that, it totally builds character. And honestly, it makes you to be, in my opinion, a better man, and see things a lot differently. So, I would never regret it. You'll never hear that come out of my mouth. But I do know in high school, when I was 17, I think I was 17. I went missing for like 2 or 3 days. My parents called me. They're like, "Where you at? What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm down in Montgomery joining the Army." And they were like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, it's already done. So congrats. I'm joining the Army. I'm getting out of y'all's hair, But no, they would never, they would love it if I was home or not home, it didn't matter. But it was a fun experience, man. It was something that I would never regret. One good saying that I can remember in particular is, "I miss the clowns, but I don't miss the circus." And that always kind of stuck with me. Always resonated. So
yeah, I still keep in touch with military friends that I made throughout my from outside that I didn't actually serve with, but that were in the military. And then there's a guy named Sean Devine. He was my roommate when we were in Iraq. I still text him pretty frequently. Sean, if you're watching this, you're overdue for a visit down here to Alabama. He's out in California right now. The funny thing is that he's a lieutenant colonel now. And it's funny because I thought about it. I was retired from the Army in 2011, and if I would have stayed in, if everything would have lined up, I probably would be a full bird colonel at this point. So it's just crazy to think, because Sean and I were both lieutenants, when we went to Iraq. So it builds bonds, and I don't want to just say brotherhood, because there's men and women in uniform. I speak still lady named Amy Flores. I think she is, I don't know if she's an 05. I think she's an 05 promotable right now. So she's a lieutenant colonel promotable right now. And her ex-husband, Gabe Flores, they were both married. I met them in our workup to go to Iraq. I think he may have just made full bird. I could be wrong. Amy, if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I'm fairly certain about that. So, but nonetheless, one of the things that you had mentioned, at least in the notes that I took, talking about military experiences and lessons learned. I mean, are there any kind of formative lessons learned, from the military that you've taken away and been able to actively apply, in your life as it is now, and I guess maybe to frame it a little better. So, your life after the military, you're an engineer now, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, and you work for
Northrop.
Northrop. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe you can talk about how some of the military experiences have affected your work, or at least got you into that line of work.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. They're very actually related. I worked on Patriot missiles as well as before that a couple of different MOSs. But um, for those who may not understand, a MOS is a military occupational specialty. It's basically your job in the military. But um, I I enjoyed it a lot. I'll be honest. I had a lot of people in air defense that were very good to me. My first line leader, very first one that actually knew how to get to me, Staff Sergeant Tattagui. Um, I I wasn't always a model soldier, so but he knew how to get to me. But um, it absolutely directly aligns doing maintenance on those Patriot missiles and kind of learning, you know, reading like a technical manual and then going from the other side of it, trying to bridge the gap between, the engineers and the user, which would be the soldiers. And that's kind of my job. I take that information from the drawings or whatnot, and I make sure they understand it and interpret it correctly. And so, um, you know, at some point I was on the other side of that fence, and I would be like, well, okay, maybe I would look at something and it wouldn't absolutely resonate with me. So when I'm writing these things or making sure that it has clarity, I would try to put myself in that position, reading that at some point, being like, okay, does this make sense? If they read this, would that make sense? And so it absolutely has translated for that. And I couldn't be more grateful for that opportunity. And Northrop kind of took a chance on me right outside the military, and I'll forever be grateful for that. So
I don't know if this is true or not, but somebody told me a long time ago that Army field manuals are written to the 8th grade reading level. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, in doing things like that, I mean, are you applying kind of that same? I mean, obviously you're working with things that are more technical, but are you trying to break things down to be as simple as possible, or is there a variation of audiences, like you have higher level technical operators versus lower based upon what the equipment is, or I don't know.
So that's actually a really good question. So the way our manuals are broken down, they're broken down into like a operator level and a maintainer level, where like an operator level would be kind of more simplistic, straightforward. Um, is this power switch LED on type of stuff? Mm-hmm. And then your maintainer level, you're starting to further break down your troubleshooting or your maintenance procedures, which are sometimes they can be complex. So it just kind of depends on like what level of TM you are. If you're an operator or a maintainer TM, it really depends on the severity of what's going on. So it just kind of depends. If they can't figure it out, if it ain't a simple problem at a operator or a user level, then yeah, we'll go ahead and shift it to a maintainer where they further troubleshoot it. And they got all kinds of great diagnostic equipment. I mean, our military completely impresses me every single day. And, I mean, they're just always evolving. It's awesome. You know, proud to be an American citizen.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe we'll shift gears a little bit away from work stuff, because I'm sure that as your job and my job, we have to kind of be careful about some of the things that we say. But let's maybe talk about some of your passions for a little bit. I have the Walsh Racecraft banner up right now. Let's talk about that. Like, how did you get into that?
Well, if we're being honest, my father, he was a absolute just diehard racer. He great driver. I hope at some point I can live up to his name. Being a good driver. But I thought about it, and when we were younger, there was never kind of the money around to do stuff like that, because it was really expensive. We did what we could, RC racing and stuff, and that
We
itself,
were talking earlier. It sounds like it's still very expensive.
it is absolutely expensive.
Yeah.
And then you got mishaps like you got to replace the transmission in your dually and stuff like that. So it's all kinds of things that can go wrong. You lock the brakes up and slam the wall. Somebody may have did that yesterday, but it's just one of those things, man. I I thought it would be a great family bonding time too, and I have an extended family. Yeah, I have blood, but I also have an extended family, and it's very important to me that we all come together and there's something we agree upon, and we want to do it, and we want to do it right, and I think that's kind of the atmosphere that we've been building with this team here, and you know we put a lot of pride behind it. There's a lot of money and time invested into it, and one day, I want to say maybe it was a couple years ago that I was talking with my dad and was like, I want to race. He would talk about stories with him racing and stuff like that, and I would be like, dude, that just sounds awesome. And so um, I actually didn't have the money at the time, so I think I pulled out. Um, I think it was 7,500 out of my retirement account, and I was like, well, I can't take it with me, So why am I backloading all this money when I may not be physically able to enjoy it? Obviously, I have to be smart about it, but I did pull out of my retirement account, and we went down to Portland, Tennessee, the next day after I got that, and we went and bought a car. And the guy who sold it to us, he was a great guy. And we just kind of went from there. We knew we had a lot of work to do, getting the car ready, establishing a brand, pit crew. I mean, we got a lot of good guys. I might go into a tangent here, but we got my father. He's the crew chief. He absolutely busts his butt. Doug, he's my spotter. Doug Emerson. He's also a crew chief. He busts his butt. And then you got my brother, Nick Walsh, Noah. He does everything he can too, along with Nick.
Noah's like your hype man.
Yeah, Noah is kind of like my hype man. He, if I'm feeling down, if I feel like I had a bad run or something like that, Noah's like, don't even worry about it. Look what you're doing. And I'm like, you're right, man. You're right.
Yeah.
And so Noah will peek his head in the car and he'll be like, don't even sweat it. And I'm just like, at that point, everything's okay to me, And so, we got Uncle Keith, Matt Cordell, Parker Swords. We got Kevin Wilcox. he's also another fighter too.
And I met Kevin. Actually, Kevin installed my Ring doorbell.
Yeah,
And he and Adam, my fiance's other son, they have a business as well. And I don't remember, I should know this. I cannot remember. I'm thinking Prestige Worldwide, but I know that's from Step Brothers. Goodness gracious, what is it? I'll think below it. Is it?
Yeah, Prestige
Yeah.
HM.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on the car. They're actually on the car. So is my little nephew, his detailing business. And without all these guys and my teammate Austin Finley, man, he has been awesome. We have absolutely leaned on him for a lot of things. And he's became a really good friend of mine too. And people like him and Doug, they don't have to they don't have to sit here and field our phone calls or help us when they can, but they do it. They do it for the love of the game, and stuff like that. You got to respect it. I mean,
Yeah.
true grassroots, grassroots racers. So it's just been. I mean, it's been a work in progress. We're down on horsepower, and we know that, and we got an engine being built by John Thomas Race Engines. We got a real nice 406 coming in, and a good carburetor coming from Chris White, and I believe that's his name. But yeah, he's that's who John uses, so that's who we trusted, and matter of fact, we're having to drop our car off to Austin Tuesday. Make sure that we didn't bend the frame or anything like that. And,
Yeah.
He's the go-to for fabrication on stuff like that. So, we
maybe, well, not to interrupt you, but maybe give me the operator level version of like, how do you start a race car gig? Like, I mean, like, how do you pick a car? How do you know what's a good deal and what isn't a good deal? How do you start that up off of only $7,500?
That was initial. Well, we had to have an open trailer first, and I got on Marketplace, and there was this guy. He was selling this trailer. I forgot his name. He was a real good guy, though. He wanted that trailer cheap, and it wasn't in the best shape. But I took it and I redid it, and it was a beautiful open trailer, and a car hauler, and I was like, all right, cool. I think we're ready to rock, And so I've been talking to this guy back and forth. 2.5 weeks maybe. He was very patient with me. I told him what was going on. I said, hey, just hang on to it. Let me come get it. And there ain't many people like that anymore that will just give you their word and actually do it. So
That's true.
And so I was very impressed with him. His name was James Choates, and we went down there. He showed it to us, fired it up, everything else, and we took it home with us. I mean, it was a tight squeeze on that trailer. I mean, that trailer was pretty thin, side to side, and then got it home, went to operating on it. We went to go either to a practice. I think it was a practice actually, and this is actually a funny story. So we had changed the offsets a little bit, which was how wide the tires were and stuff.
Okay.
And so we had barely got the car on there initially, and so when we changed them, the car was a little bit wider. And so I was sitting here trying to drive up this trailer, and I was like, man, I don't know. It won't fit. I have no idea what I'm doing wrong. And I thought it was me. I was like, man, I must be the crappiest driver in the world. I can't even get the car on the trailer, And it was a lot of learning curves. I couldn't even take off on that thing initially. I just had a lot of faith, man. And so we're coming up. Dad's like, we got to get this thing on here. And I'm like, Roger that. Yes, sir. And he's like, send it. And so I send it. And man, the race car goes flying above the wheel well and tears
Oh
our air
no.
box all to
Oh
pieces.
no.
We didn't even make it out to practice, man. It was and at that point, we had a buddy of ours, the same guy who spots me, and he's the other crew chief, Doug Emerson. He had a trailer, and we'd been looking at buying it. We had bought one before that. Shortly after that incident, we were like, I don't know if we can make it work. And I was like, Dad, that's a lot of work. And so we had ended up doing some trading around with him, and we got his trailer, which is real nice, got a nice observation deck and all that. And I don't know, the cards just kind of aligned, man. Like, Dad, my wife, my brother, everybody on the crew, Uncle Keith, Doug, everybody, Noah, Kevin, Matt, all them guys, they had a lot of faith in us, man, and Austin Finley too, man. He'll always text me after the race, and he'll be like, no matter what, just know you're doing what you can do. So it's just stuff like that. When you get guys like that in your corner, and putting that in perspective to MMA terms, it'll push you a pretty far way, and it's stuff like that that's just priceless. You know what I mean? So you couldn't pay for that type of friendship and stuff. So
Yeah, and I mean, like talking about MMA, I mean, and being, folks look at the ad that we have up here. You look pretty sweaty in that picture, and I imagine that car is pretty stinking hot. I know when Brendy and I came out to see you race last year, I stuck my hand just inside the car to feel it, and it was like Iraq hot.
it gets pretty severe in there.
Yeah. But I mean, training MMA, I mean, I would imagine, I mean, you have to be in good shape in order to drive a race car.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you I dedicate a lot of time to it now. I've kind of been out the game a little bit, but I still try to work out here and there. I obviously, it's limited time a lot of times, but yeah, I mean, anybody that says race car drivers aren't athletes, they're they got a lesson to be learned,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it gets real hot in there. I mean, by the end of the race last night, I was sitting at my engine was sitting at 242 degrees on the money, and we had coolant pouring out the side. We hope we didn't blow a head gasket, but it's. And then you can imagine that heat's rising straight up to that cab, and man, it gets hot in there. I couldn't give you an accurate amount. I tried to give an accurate amount before, and I think I was wrong. So anybody that I might have told wrong, I'm sorry. I don't know, man. It gets hot enough in there where you'd probably be able to set some cookie dough, and long enough you might be able to bake some cookies. So
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's see here. So, I guess, is there any end game for the race team? Is this just a hobby, or I mean, I know that you're looking for sponsors. I mean, what do you want to happen with the race team?
So basically, I had a 2-year plan, and I had it written out, and I'm kind of thinking we might move a little quicker. I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to perform. I wasn't exactly sure how hot and heavy we were going to go into it, and basically we have plans at some point. If we can get some good sponsors behind us, and keep on the same trajectory with our team and our teammates, or teammate, we'll probably end up running pro late model. My buddy has a late model that he said we could work something out. So He's actually my teammate too. So, we might end up taking him up on that, but we're just going to keep trying to move up. The type of people we are, we're not very stagnant on things. Some people, they might run their whole career in a division, and that's just not who I am. I'm either going big or send me back home.
Yeah.
So if I can make it, to one of these traveling series, and hopefully Northrop would let me go part time or something like that. I'm going to take it as far as I can take it. It's
That's awesome. Well, maybe we should, I guess, step back in time a little bit. So you said you're not really actively training MMA anymore, but maybe let's talk about, I guess the experiences that you had when you were still training MMA, and maybe even, I guess, talk about Noah a little bit, because Noah is still training MMA. I don't think he has a. I asked him last time we went out for supper, and it didn't sound like he had a fight lined up anytime soon. But I know he's still training. But maybe tell us a little bit about your background with that, and kind of, yeah, just a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Me and Noah have been training partners for a very long time. I mean, we've been real good friends for at least 10 years now. And man, I tell you, me and him, we were training there for a long time. We would, I think the statute of limitations has ran out by now, but we would break into a gym called Triad in the morning. It'd be something stupid early, maybe like 4 a.m. And me, him, and another individual, actually, I think a couple more than that, we would go in there and we would be training, rolling in the morning before school. We were still in grade school and all that. And, we just would have a good time with it. And then I think they figured out what we were doing, so we had to find somewhere else, and we found Rocket City MMA at some point. And actually, in between that, we were training at a guy, Austin. God, dog it. I'll think of it later. But it was a guy named Austin, and he had a shed in his backyard. I'm not making this up. You can ask Noah. And he had a shed in his backyard, and we turned it into an MMA gym. And we were sitting there training inside this just super hot shed. It had, it was a condensed MMA gym. I mean, it was pretty decent for what we were trying to do. But yeah, we trained out of there, and we started Team Opulence at some point. I think Noah kind of came up with that name, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And I kind of got out of it a little bit. I obviously, Noah, I support him. Anything he does, he's a hell of a fighter. I mean, if you watch, any of his fights, he's a straight just dog, just giving it his all, and especially watch his fight in Mississippi. I mean, that dude, he totally won that fight in my opinion. But he just
Was that the one Brendy and I went to? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what part of Mississippi was that? Do you remember?
I don't. I know it was like I think it was like a 2.5 hour drive though.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. It really
Yeah.
wasn't. But yeah, I mean, he put on a show. I mean, I'm talking about just, in my opinion, absolutely dog walked that guy. But yeah, man, I mean, he just kept on going. And he's been training with several different gyms since then, picking their brains apart. And I'm talking about just dedicated to his craft, man. And each time I see him, it seems like he learned several new things. And he'll tell me about it sometimes, and may even show me, if we get time or whatever. But he's just, man, guys like that, you ain't gonna outwork them.
Yeah.
So yeah, Noah's a good one to be around. And
it's
whenever,
probably important to mention that Noah is a Marine as well, or he he's no longer in service. I guess, once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. But I think that, Noah's success too, I would imagine if we had him on right now, he would probably attribute his success, at least, somewhat, to coming out of the Marines.
absolutely. Yeah, he was a good Marine, and I think he was in for about 3 years ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah. And I think he would have stayed in it. If I understood correctly, it's because they were trying to force him to get the COVID shot.
Yeah. And I skated by with that. I mean, I applied for religious exemption, and I actually think at one point I made my own religion, and I had like this 30-page report, and it was sent up a chain of command. I didn't think they were going to let me leave the peninsula of Korea. So it was just, it's ridiculous. I mean, stuff like that is ridiculous. That wasn't in my contract initially, so
Yeah.
I ain't doing it. And anyway, yeah, that's neither here nor there, but
Well,
yeah.
and so, I don't know. I'm not really plugged into I wrestled all through school, and I managed to get offered a small scholarship. I didn't end up going to that school, but I can appreciate what MMA fighters go through as a wrestler. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the MMA scene here in Huntsville, and I know that the one fight that we went to, you remember, I don't know if you were there or not, but the one that the promoter had to cancel because like he didn't have EMS and all the other crazy stuff that went on that night. You remember that?
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like they kind of screwed him, but maybe I'm wrong. But they had all the EMS. I mean, they had all of them at Alabama A&M homecoming. It was like you can't let one at least come over here. In my opinion, they just they knew it was coming, I think, and they just had piss poor planning, I think.
Well, I knew it was like danger signs. Like me as an attorney, like I was sitting in the crowd, and then when that guy, who I guess was a promoter, got on, and he's like, "Yeah, do we have anybody in the crowd that's like a doctor or a nurse or whatever?" I'm like, "No." Yeah, I'm like, this is not good. And then it came back. It was like they're like, "Well, you could fight, but then you'll be suspended for 6 months, and and all this other stuff." And it was like, what a bunch of garbage. I mean, I felt bad for Noah that night because I know he trained really hard and getting prepared for that. So
absolutely, and he put a ton of time and effort into his fight camp. I know he was ready. I seen him. I mean, he was locked in. Yeah, and that dude from the Alabama Athletic Commission, that he's over the boxing stuff. He's an absolute douche. He's the biggest douchebag in the world. I remember after my first fight, I flicked him off, and he was telling me I had to get out of there, and I was like, "I'll see you in the parking lot," and all this, that, and the third. And that was back in my younger days when I was just kind of reckless on stuff, and I still don't like him, but I probably wouldn't say all that now.
Yeah. Well, you just did, so.
Well, you know what I mean. Back then, that's what I did, but now I'd probably be different.
Yeah.
But
well, and so I mean, MMA. I mean, you being a fan of the sport, and I have kind of a connection to it. Jose Aldo. You remember that fighter? Mm-hmm. So, you know a fighter named Ricardo Lamas? He fought Jose Aldo at I forget which UFC it was, like one something or other. anyway, his brother Frank and I are friends. His brother Frank is an attorney, and Frank invited me to come and watch that fight. And we were really hopeful that Rick was going to end up winning that, but ultimately didn't, which is too bad. And Rick just retired, I think. Maybe it's time moves so fast, but it may have been about 5 years ago or so. But I know Rick was a wrestler all through school as well, and I think the transition, at least from what I've heard, from wrestling into MMA is usually pretty natural. I know maybe you can speak from the MMA standpoint, but wrestling, I think, also laid the foundation for my military career as well, because the amount of training and discipline it takes to make sure that you're staying on weight, and and that you're training appropriately and you're keeping yourself healthy. I mean, a lot of those skills translate directly to the military life, because I think if you do it right in the military, maybe I don't want to overstate this, but there was a 3-star general that was giving a talk to a group of us, and he said, being a soldier is like being a semi-professional athlete. With the amount of that you're working on, you're doing it. Now, granted, when you're talking about MOSs, military occupational specialties, not every MOS is, shall we say, heavy into PT. But I think your combat arms, your combat support jobs, definitely were. And I know, like, even after I messed up my knee in Iraq, I came back. I'm old and weak now, but I was like 260 pounds, 12% body fat, because all we did was eat and lift and do that in Iraq. So what are some of the positives that you see, and I don't know if you have any exposure with this, but are there any up and coming stars that you're aware of in the Huntsville area, or are there any big lessons that you see coming out of certain training camps that are maybe differentiate them? I don't know.
Well, obviously, I think my brother is going to be a star. Noah works his butt off, and he's got some really good training partners and stuff now. Probably a lot better than I could have ever been. But he's got some people with him. Fabian Johnson is a good one, and Modrell Kirby are two guys that are, them three are probably, they're probably going to take it pretty far, in my opinion. And just seeing what I see with them, and how they interact with stuff, and how they treat the sport, is just, those guys are headed to a next level that and I hope they see it. So
Excellent. All right. Well, we've kind of talked about our highlight reels, but I think it's important, for people to understand that success in life is often met with, a lot of failures in between. Are there any, I guess, real formative failures that you've had in your life, or things that have gone, super sideways on you, that ultimately, you're able to step away and look at it as, a learning experience and grow from it? Or, have you had experiences where, you didn't grow from it? It just is a bad failure, and that's just all it is.
Yeah, they may be like a minute kind of lesson, maybe, for the most part. And I think a lot of kind of smaller lessons kind of compile into larger lessons. But a lot of I can't believe I'm saying this, but probably 99% of the time my dad would tell me not to do something, he was right. I shouldn't have did it. And so I don't know. It's just stuff like that, like, listening to your parents and stuff like that. Like I learned a lot. It was kind of trial and error for me, really. A lot of times, like, I can't really think of anything absolutely in specific. I'm sure later tonight something will come to me, but you know, it's just a lot of times, even good friends of mine, they'd be like, "Don't do it," and I'd be like, "No, I'm doing it." And yeah, I'd just go for it, and maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. It's like throwing something at a wall. Maybe it'll stick, maybe it won't.
Yeah, and I think it, as you get older, I mean, what I've learned a lot over the last 20 years of my life, and how much I've grown. And it seems like really from the time I went into the military at 17 years old, it seemed like I became a different person every 5 years. I mean, fundamentally, I was still the same guy, but my hopes, my dreams, my desires, all those things, my expectations of myself, the friends that I had, because I think it's I think people often really underestimate the value of their friend group. Making sure that you're keeping the correct company it's a big deal. And it's not just from a reputational standpoint, but it's because of habits that you pick up from others. And if you are going with I hate to necessarily say winners and losers, but that's what there are. There's winners and losers. And if you're hanging out with people that have low expectations of themselves, that'll end up rubbing off on you, and you won't achieve your full potential. I've lost a lot of friends over the years, and I'll say, the friends that I've lost, I'm better for it, because they were not kind of progressing in the same direction. I mean, it's not to say you can't have friends that maybe aren't at the same place as you in life, but I think that aligning yourself with people that can better you is super, super critical. And a lot of folks, that I just think that they undervalue that. But one of the big things that I've also like I don't have a temper. I get frustrated about stuff. And I think that as I've gotten older, even though Brendy and I were arguing about something yesterday, and she's mad at me and hasn't called me all day, and I'm probably at least 50% wrong. But I think it's well, I'll tell you the story, and I'll say that I could have handled it better. My son, there was a bird that my front door light that comes down from the front porch. This bird had gone in underneath the light and started building a nest. And I'm convinced it's the same stinking bird, because it happens every single year. And so I always go in and I pull the nest stuff out so that they can't get the nest established. Well, this year, Timothy, my son, says, he's like, I go up to reach to pull the stuff down. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm pulling the stuff out so the birds don't get in there." And he's like, "No, you can't do that. They want to lay eggs and all that stuff." So I'm like, fine, like, whatever. So these birds built this nest, okay? And the mama bird, I have no, because they're not sparrows, but they're like these like little tiny birds. And the bird gets into the lamp through like literally, I mean, the opening on the side of the lamp is like an inch, maybe an inch and a half. I have no idea how this bird is cramming its body in there. But nonetheless, I go out there, and every time the nest is a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, until the point where somehow this mama bird was able to not only fit in there with eggs, but then like lay the eggs. And so, these birds are in there. So then, the birds are in there and they're pooping all over everything. My front porch has poop all over it. And I was like, well, Tim, I didn't get rid of the nest, but you're going to go out and scrub the front porch because you want the birds there to get the poop off, right? So Brendy and Isla came over to swim yesterday, and there was one of the birds that was still like jammed in there, and Brendy was convinced the bird was going to die, and I was so frustrated with the birds. I'm just like, screw these birds, whatever. I was like, the bird can die in there. I'll scoop it out later. And she's like, no. Yeah. And so she goes, go get me a ladder. So I go get her the ladder, and then like she's trying to take the lamp down or whatever, and she's arguing with me about how to open the lamp. I live here. I know how to open the lamp because like light bulbs when it burns out. And she's like, no, you got to open it from the bottom. I'm like, no, you have to open it from the side. So she opens it from the side. Well, one of the screw nuts drops down and bounces somewhere and gets lost. And I'm like, you've got to be friggin' kidding me, right? And so we take the whole thing down. She takes the nest down, releases the bird, like, I don't know if it's like Snow White or whatever with, all the animals that love her and all that stuff. And the bird, goes off, whatever. We get the nest down and all that stuff. And, I'm like, well, we have to get the lamp cleaned up. She was kind enough to go ahead and clean the lamp up with all the bird poop and all that stuff. I'm sitting there looking for the nut to try and tighten this thing down. I'm hopeful that, when she puts it back, maybe one nut will support it. It doesn't. And I get, visibly frustrated about this. And I was not as kind as I should have been. I didn't yell or anything. It's just she knew that I was upset. And anyway, so but that's one of the, like those types of situations, like, I'm not a hothead, but as I'm getting older, I'm getting better at getting perspective on, when I've handled something well or not well. And, I think that's, a big thing. I mean, you definitely have your head screwed on straight. And, I think that in your, would you say you're 28?
20. Well, I'll be 28 in July. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, in 28 years, I mean, you're very accomplished and you're, clearly moving in the right direction. But I think that, it's one of those things that as you age, you get better perspective on, who you associate with, what you're doing, what your goals are. And I think part of that is because you realize that the most valuable thing is your time.
100%.
The time is something that you cannot recover. There's no amount of money that brings time back. So, just to bring it full circle, I mean, all of these things that you've done in your life and I've done in my life, I feel as though, they're incredibly worthy. And, we're investing our time in the right way. But I guess that would be one of the things that I've learned. The message, to anybody who may be listening to this is don't take for granted the time that you have. Make sure you're spending it towards the things that you want to, accomplish that are going to better your family, that are going to better yourself, and others. So I don't know if you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and my wife, I try to spend a lot of time with her, but a lot of times it doesn't always work out that way. I'm on the phone. I feel like probably a little too much more than I should be. Not necessarily scrolling through social media or nothing like that, but like just physically on a phone call. And sometimes I feel like maybe that's annoying. And she's been an absolute trooper, dealing with all this racing stuff. And, I was trying to start this property management company and stuff. And, trying to deal with the property we got and the race car and, just all these certain things going around. We're both still in school and it's just a lot going on. And so finding time really isn't easy. it's not really on your side. So you kind of have to pick and choose, your time wisely. And like you said, there's no amount of money that's going to bring back the past hour and a half. There's no amount of money. So, you kind of just got to choose it the way you want to choose it. And at some point, certain things become worth more to you than others. Like me, I'm young. Um, you know, it's worth it for me to go mow my grass. Somebody 30 years older than me might be like, it's worth it for me to hire somebody, you know? And so it also kind of depends on your perspective. And everybody's got a different one. And, there might not be a wrong or right perspective on things. And I'm no person to judge that, but I feel like, people like me and you could probably offer pretty decent, well, you probably a lot better than me, but like pretty solid advice, um, to anybody that would be willing to take it. And that's just kind of my perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, like I think that's the other thing too that I realized that one of my good friends from high school, actually my best friend, I won't say his name, but he got involved with drugs real heavy, ended up doing some jail time and all that, and he was a phenomenal athlete when we were in school. Actually, won a state title. I won't say what race it was so that he can't be identified, but nonetheless, he was first in the state for this particular type of race. And he had colleges coming after him, and he didn't do anything with it. And I mean, wasted potential is as good as not having any potential or any talent. And I think that's something important for folks to consider as well, is that like I never knew that I was going to become a lawyer. I had no idea like that. Like I met kids in law school that knew from the time they were little kids that they always wanted to be a lawyer. My goal was that I wanted to be a soldier, and I would have stayed in my entire life had I not blown my knee out. That was as far as my plan was get in the military and do that. But I think one of the things that my dad, who is a pancreatic cancer survivor, and he said to me that one of the things he admires about me is that I know how to identify good opportunities. And I think that that's I've been able to parlay that, because like I once I started recognizing like certain patterns and milestones, it's like, okay, like I finished undergraduate, and then when the time was right, I had the opportunity because I had the GI Bill, and it was like, okay, well, is it better to bet on give my GI Bill to my son, who Lord knows, like maybe he wants to. I laughed with Brendy. If I could go back in time and you said that you didn't get to go to school, you had to do something else, what do you want to do? HVAC. I have an obsession with HVAC. I don't know what it is. I love HVAC. Like I think it's cool. Like like it just whatever. And maybe my son, at that point when he was still a baby, maybe he wants to do HVAC. Maybe going to college wasn't his thing. So I figured, okay, well, what's the bet? Is it better to give him the GI Bill and bet on him wanting to go to school, or is it better to bet on me, because I know what my capabilities are right now? And I chose to bet on me. And then, when I finished my MBA, it was like, okay, well, I did that. I finished first in my class, 4.0, whatever. And I still, since I finished early, I still had another 2 years of GI Bill left over. And so, when I got to law school at West Virginia, I met one of the professors, a guy named Arthur Reiser, who's written a couple books. He was a lieutenant colonel, military policeman. He got blown up while he was in Iraq, traumatic brain injury, and all that. And he kind of took me under his wing, and he's like, hey, you can do law school in 2 years. And I was like, really? And so he literally drew it all out on a piece of paper for me in his office. And he's like, it's like a suicide run to do it like this, but it's possible. And so I ended up, I didn't meet the 2 year mark. I did it in 2.5 years because I had some other stuff going on, and namely a divorce and, whatever else was going on. And, but I saw those opportunities, and I think that, the biggest waste of potential is deciding sometimes not to bet on yourself. And what's the saying? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's what you got to do. And and the only way that you're going to gain that cumulative life knowledge is by taking those shots, even if there's a low probability that you're going to actually make it, because sometimes you do. I mean, like Navy SEALs, right? They start off with like 180 guys and they finish with like 35. It's not that it's impossible. I don't know if you watch Rob O'Neill, the guy that, killed Osama bin Laden, but I watch a lot of his talks about stuff, and he has just a tremendous amount of like inspirational stuff. I wish I would have been hardcore enough to, or at least even have the huevos to try out to be a SEAL or, whatever. But just listening to those guys, it's like, I'm not going to ask you to do anything impossible, but I am going to ask you to do something very difficult every single day, and it's going to get harder. And I think, folks that thrive in those types of environments, those are the ones you want to be around you, because they recognize like, hey, he's doing something really difficult. Like, it's how, I now that I know the story of your race team, like, you wouldn't have been able to do it all by yourself. I mean, you could have bought a car, maybe you could have done some stuff, but you've surrounded yourself with a great crew of people that's enabled you to, to do that. And I think that, I think you're already picking up on the value of the people that you keep around you.
Absolutely. Without Dad, Doug, Nick, people like that, it just, there ain't a single way. I mean, having a race team is not a one person job. It's not. It's really not. And Emily, she runs all of our media stuff, and I don't necessarily always have time to put stuff like that together. So she does a wonderful job doing that, and there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, even during a race week, leading up to it, there's a lot that goes into it, and you ain't just fronting costs for tires. You ain't, there's all kinds of parts. Fuel's $10 a gallon. It's $13 if you get it at the track. It ain't a cheap hobby.
Yeah.
And, that's why I'm saying, if I'm going to jump into something this expensive, I might as well try to take it to the furthest extent. So,
yeah. And, in line with that, I mean, I wanted to ask you, because I know I promised you we'd stick to about an hour. We may go over a little bit, but when we were talking, I'm wondering like, what's next for Will Walsh? Like, I know you'd mentioned possibly politics eventually, and I know you'd mentioned also the property management company. I don't know if maybe you could speak to both of those for a minute.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, me and Emily had started that property management company. Kind of a short backstory there. We got a house out in Texas, and then me and my brother own a house here, along with another individual. So we've kind of started trying to build a portfolio, and my tenant there in Texas, great guy, wonderful guy, and I totally trust him, which some people probably might say that's a no in business, but sometimes you can kind of tell a character. and this guy's an Army vet too, so that means something to me. But he told me he was the best property manager he's ever dealt with, and he's been renting for a long time, and that kind of spoke to me, and I was like, I'm kind of doing this part time, like I'm doing this when I get free time, and not necessarily even free time, like obviously if something is bad, I need to take care of it, so it would be a priority. And I think our AC went out. It was an older unit, and I want to say as soon as I could get somebody out there, I mean, like next day or two, it was squared away. And like a property management company, they're going to be like, well, we got to get with this person and send this invoice. No, it really doesn't. It really doesn't take that. I mean, it's a matter of finding people you trust and dealing with them, paying them, making sure they did the job correct, and going about your business. It doesn't have to be all this fancy nonsense. And that's what we want to instill is good traditional values, and making sure every tenant is satisfied, and every customer that owns the house is satisfied. So it's got to be a win-win. It doesn't have to necessarily be somebody screwing somebody over. Everybody can be happy, and that's kind of our whole objective there.
Yeah.
So
what about politics? Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. If I could like dig in a little bit and have a little bit of time now, I would probably start working on my campaign to run for mayor of Athens. It's not off the table. It never will be.
Why would you want to be mayor?
I feel like, and I'm not trying to brag, but I feel like I'm smart enough to where I could do things to where I can make people see things my way, whether rather than how they've been done for the past 60 years. I'm not okay with that. If something's been done a certain way, cool. If it's worked, great. But we have certain issues going around in Athens. Roads, for example. We're paying income taxes on roads, and then we're paying taxes on property, and then we're paying taxes on tags. This, that, and the third, and our roads still look like dog crap. So, certain things like that, and I feel like a lot of viewers may resonate with me here. Stuff like that is just it's irate to me. I know there's funds somewhere. They may be misused at some point. I don't know. I'm not gonna speculate on that. But where is this money going? Where is these property taxes going? Where are these state income taxes going? Where are all these DMV fees and all this? Where is all that going? And and at some point we have to prioritize certain things that are important to us, because and I use the road as a big example, but I'm paying a bunch of money for a car. I go over a pothole, there I go. I blew out a strut or something because we ain't got good roads. So it's just one of those things as using that as an example. And I believe there's a lot of betterment. And I think Mayor Marks has done a great job. But, whenever he's done with the throne, hopefully enough people would advocate, and I would hope that I could make a difference in some capacity.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. You're real dynamic, man. I'm super impressed, and I really appreciate you taking the time today to sit down with me on a Sunday afternoon. I'm really glad we got to talk. I'm hopeful. I'm sad I didn't get to see you race last night, but hopefully I can catch up with you later this summer. Brandy and I can come out. I'll kind of hand it back over to you. Is there anything you want to close with?
No, mine is just really being thankful for being here, and you welcoming me here, and everyone in my family, my dad, my wife, my brother, everyone, and it's been a great experience. And, anybody that has any questions about me, feel free to ask. I'm an open book, and I ain't got nothing to hide. So,
and I want to throw up again, we didn't really talk about it too much. I know I displayed this, but I know you're looking for sponsors. Since this is my platform, I get to do what I want with it. So anybody watching this, reach out to Will. I know that he's doing sponsors. You can put your logo or your business on his car, get it seeing it out there. I mean, it's actually pretty cool when you see a race car with your logo on it, and you're going to support a guy in a team that I think is really cool. So that's it for this episode, everybody. Thanks again, Will. And with that said, we'll catch everybody next time.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.